Do the Chicago Bulls now have a direction for their roster? We're going to be talking about some recent comments made by AK that suggest the Chicago Bulls now have a clearer path as to what they're going to do with the future of this roster. This is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and this is another episode of Bulls Digest. Before we go ahead and jump into it, wanted to let you guys know that 78.1% of you guys that watch the videos are not subscribed to the channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with the latest news and happenings around your Chicago Bulls. Without further ado, let's jump into the hot topic of the day, which is Bulls have a plan for the roster, or do they? All right. So this comes on the heels of what AK had to say. He is the vice president of basketball operations for the Chicago Bulls. And he was a little bit more revealing in his interview. This is taking place here in Las Vegas. I think this was either during or right after one of the games. But let's start off with just what he had to say with the roster as a whole, where it is right now. You can check this article out on Chicago Sports, and that is Bulls management talks DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine in the direction of the franchise. But jumping into what was said, all right, and so look, he wanted to reiterate that after the season there were going to be changes made, and he said, look, we were telling the truth. And in terms of the youth movement, he talks about that. He says, look, we have a lot of young guys that are moving in the right direction, and they are experienced now, all right? He's also saying that this is not the final product. And then lastly, in this first piece, he is letting you guys know that, look, the formula that was in place before, it didn't work, and they tried to let it go ahead and naturally play itself out. But, you know, whether people are going to argue if it's too early or too late doesn't really matter. He says that right now we're in the right path as far as the direction that they're going. All right, so let's unpack really what was said there at the beginning. So he's essentially saying that, yes, we're going towards a youth movement, but we are adding younger players like Jalen Smith, like Josh Giddey, players who are established in this league and still have a ton of potential, along to go with a guy like Matas Buzelis, who we've been watching over the last two games, that has looked pretty stellar. All right, and so I do like the fact that the Chicago Bulls are not only just getting younger, but they're getting players that have some experience. And I talked about this before. Okay, so Kobe White, Desumu, those guys obviously have been in our program, and they know what it's like to fight for a playoff position. They were in a play-in situation last year, and they got a chance to learn from DeMar DeRozan, okay? And then when you add a guy like Josh Giddey is coming over from a successful program with OKC. And yes, I know he took a little bit of a backseat with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but he's still learned a ton, and he's going to bring that experience over to the Chicago Bulls. And I have to think that his playing style is going to open up the offense, all right? And so those are guys who have done it before. And regardless if you like it or not, Zach LaVine is more than likely going to be here. So, you know, for the most part, Zach LaVine, he's been on those teams that got to the playoffs or were onto that play-in situation. So there's some experience there. Vooch has had some experience in the playoffs there. So he does talk about getting younger and then also to leaning on that experience. Next, one of the things that AK talks about here is not just the youth movement, but he's talking about DeMar DeRozan and his impact on the Chicago Bulls. And I love what was brought up in this particular segment of the article, because they talk about the fact that because DeMar DeRozan did so much for the Chicago Bulls, they wanted to go ahead and give these guys one more chance. All right. So he said, you know, he felt like DeMar DeRozan had been an extension of Billy Donovan, really on and off the floor. And he felt like, look, they had got him 3 years ago with the hope to win and obviously turn the franchise around. It obviously got derailed with injuries, but that was an opportunity, this last opportunity that they wanted to give DeMar DeRozan, and they said, look, he was the real reason, or one of the real reasons, why we decided to go ahead and keep this roster together for one more year. And so that just goes to tell you how much of an impact DeMar DeRozan was for the Chicago Bulls, how much the organization respected him, how much he respected the organization. And I think that, you know, for the people out there, including myself, that are like, look, man, he didn't have to go back with our management and work out a sign and trade. But the fact that he did that, I think it shows you that that was part of just the respect, man, that he's paying back to the franchise for trying to keep that roster together to see if they could figure it out. And they weren't able to figure it out, and here's the results, all right? So they went ahead and said, hey, we've got to do something else, and, you know, they helped him get to a winning situation. Right now, in the Chicago Bulls, they're getting a benefit out of that. They got some assets here. So I think it was, you know, a little telling here to see how much management really took DeMar DeRozan's word and, you know, how much they appreciated him, guys. So I think that we get a chance to see why the roster maybe stayed together maybe a little bit longer than it should have. Next up, guys, another thing that we've been looking forward to hearing about is Zach LaVine, all right? And so he says, look, we expect for Zach LaVine to be healthy, but we expect for him to be in camp. And one of the things that he talks about in this particular portion of the article is that we're going to be patient with a Zach LaVine deal. We're not saying that he won't be traded, but we're not going to make deals that are not going to make us better. We're going to be patient with that. And I think we are far away from a finished product right now. All right, so that is a huge update, guys, okay? So for the people out there that are saying, let's attach an asset to Zach LaVine, I don't think that it's going to happen. And I think that the Chicago Bulls really get a sense of what the market is, and they understand, like, it doesn't make the most amount of sense for us to attach future assets on just to move Zach LaVine. You know, at some point, if Zach LaVine is going to be traded, it is going to be a trade that works out for the Chicago Bulls. So I like that, you know, AK is taking a stand here with this Zach LaVine nonsense, and he's not just going to trade him for a bag of chips. And, you know, and to be fair about it, Zach LaVine is 29, and he is going to have to try to pick up his trade value if that's what he wants to do. The only way to do that is he's got to play well. And so I think that AK, in the sense, is betting on the fact that, look, Zach LaVine and the Bulls can be partners in moving him along to the next destination, but Zach LaVine is going to have to play his part, and he's going to have to play his value up a little bit more before the Chicago Bulls are willing to trade him off. So I like that. And I think that Zach LaVine, as it is now, if he's on the roster, I don't think that he's going to get in the way of Buzelis. I don't think he gets in the way of Kobe White or Dosunmu. I think that he can still let those guys eat, and maybe perhaps he can showcase that he can play off the ball. And I said that that was going to be one of the telltale signs, excuse me, for Zach LaVine, is he's going to have to learn how to play off the ball. Because when you talk about going to a club and you're going to be that it factor that's going to push them to a title, more than likely Zach LaVine's going to have to be a third or fourth option. And that means that he's going to have to learn how to play off the ball a bit better, all right? And that's something that he struggled with in his career. So I think that that was a major update. And then lastly, guys, Patrick Williams, the guy that we paid $90 million for, who, by the way, came out in an interview at halftime and said, hey, I will be ready for training camp, despite the reports out there that suggest that the foot injury is really bad, all right? And it was a lot worse than reported, guys. And so he's saying that he's good to go. He's saying that he's running, he's jumping. And he said it's a lot like having a sprained ankle to him. He said, look, it's going to take me some time to get some power back into the legs. But he said, look, we're progressing in the right way. All right. And so one of the things that AK said about Patrick Williams is saying, look, we're betting on Patrick Williams. All right. He's saying that it's all on Patrick Williams. In his quote, he's saying that, look, it is up to Patrick Williams. We know and we understand that he's been injured, all right? And AK is a guy that, based off his comments and based off the way that he's kind of shaping this roster and the changes that he's made up to this point, he's a patient guy, okay? And he's also saying that he is anticipating Lonzo Ball in training camp as well, and he's suggesting that he wants to see what both players can do, okay? And he's like, look, I'm going to give Patrick Williams the chance to prove that, you know, hey, signing him back is not a mistake here. So that is really the update for Patrick Williams. And then also, too, that lets you know what he's planning to do with Lonzo Ball. He's planning to wait it out. And so for some of us that are thinking that, you know, there is a trade that is coming right now for Lonzo, LaVine, like, it's not happening. And it looks like, too, that the Chicago Bulls are looking to go ahead and continue to give Patrick Williams the amount of playing time necessary to see if it is going to work for Patrick Williams. So that is going to be an interesting story moving forward, especially because I brought up the point earlier that Matas Buzelis in 2 games already in the Summer League has shown me from just a sheer mentality and a willingness to play both ends very hard. I mean, he's showing me already a mentality that I haven't necessarily seen from Patrick Williams in 4 years. And look, I like Patrick Williams. I hope that he does pan out, but I'm hoping that Patrick Williams is really getting comfortable with playing the 4, because I think that Matas Buzelis is going to have a say at the 3 at some point. I just don't think that if Patrick Williams continues to be a guy that averages 10 points and 4 rebounds, he's going to be a guy that is going to shut the door on Matas Buzelis playing the 3, which is where I think he naturally is right now. Eventually, I think he'll be able to play the 4. But I think that for Patrick Williams, he's going to have to get familiar with the 4. And then I think that Matas Buzelis should naturally slide into the 3. And we should start going ahead and letting him develop as much as possible. I just don't want to go ahead and slow his growth down just because Patrick Williams is here. But anyway, guys, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you think that Patrick Williams will start over Matas Buzelis and Matas Buzelis will just be buried in the bench? Or do you feel a lot like what I'm feeling here, that Matas Buzelis should be in the lineup playing the 3 as much as possible, learning as a rookie on the job, and letting Patrick Williams really get adjusted to playing the 4? All right, guys. And then also, too, are you okay with what AK had to say about Zach LaVine and being patient and saying that, look, we're not just going to trade him just for nothing? Like, it's going to have to be something that works out for the Chicago Bulls. Are you guys okay with what he had to say with the direction of the Chicago Bulls and bringing in younger guys that have had some experience and that have had some success, I should say, in the NBA? So let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments. And even though we are finally getting some truth telling here by AK, it's only taken years at this point, I'm still saying go Bulls, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace, peace, peace.